Here we go.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Jack podcast. Trying to get Jack podcast.
We have a special guest with us today, Coach
Markus. So
Marcus.
yeah. Well, yo, Kags, you can probably introduce him nicer than I would. Introduce him, bro. Do some nice, like
Coach
sentimental.
Marcus Wolf, the GOAT. Um, I think we met at Freebird a couple of months ago, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where we met. We're just shooting the shit.
Yeah.
And Marcus has been training for a long time. He's been training other people for a very long time. So why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your history.
Well, I appreciate you inviting this half Filipino on this podcast. I've been doing the fitness thing. Let's see, fucking 18 years. I was a skinny runt, man. I got every Filipino gene in me, and I did not get a single lick of that German uh in me at all. At all. I was just a really small dude, man. I think I was like a buck 40 at 18 years old, starting the gym. I actually started because two of my buddies, one of them my best friend who's a Sikh, and we just drank all the time. And then suddenly he just wanted to start lifting weights. And I was like, well, I got nobody to drink anymore with. So let's go lift weights with this guy. 2 weeks later, him and that other buddy quit the gym. 18 and a half years later, I am still looking rather normal. I still look like an average garbage man in a t-shirt, but I believe I have somewhat of an authority in this space, just being in it long enough. Um, Other than that, I mean, I was a high school dropout. I needed fitness. I'll be honest. I didn't have any other school. I had nothing. I really was, and in my household, we didn't really care that I dropped out of school. I mean, like, it's not that they didn't care, but they were just kind of like, yeah, we kind of saw this coming. You were kind of a stupid kid. Let's just kind of say it for what it was. And then when I found fitness, it was perfect because I didn't really need an education. You don't need anything except like a weekend certificate.
Yeah.
And truly, the ones who make it in fitness are the ones who just don't quit. And I mean, that's just kind of already like a thing there just by staying consistently, the reps of just showing up day in, week in, month in, which is again, obviously things that we teach to our clients. I kept doing. I just kept showing up. So even though the genetic lottery wasn't on my side, academics wasn't on my side, I just stayed long enough. I always say this, one of my superpowers happens to be that I am too ignorant to realize I probably should have quit.
Mm.
But I don't know, the littlest of things always made me happy. Like, you just go from like 100 pounds to like 110 pound on that machine, and you're like, this is great. My life is awesome. And then like, your bank account's like zero, no girls fucking talking to you right now. You're just like your whole entire life sucks. Yet that little moment was enough for me to always be like, oh yeah, this is like more progress than I made anywhere else, like school and sports, all was shit. So I was like, this is great. So I was so ignorant. I always felt like that was my superpower. And again, I try telling that to most of my clients, and they just don't get it. Like I'm like, you just have to be like, can we say retarded still? Can we say like,
Yeah,
a little? No, we can't do that. Okay,
100%. 100%.
Sure, man.
but you
Whatever you
have to
want.
be a little bit detached. You have to be detached from the whole emotion,
Okay. Yeah.
and you'll be surprised what unravel from stuff like that. But
Yeah.
that's
I
such
think
a story.
yeah. No, man, bro. Like that was, I don't know if guys can say this, but that was pretty wholesome, bro. Like the way you described yourself. Um, it was mad nice. Like I was like, oh shit, like I just met you on the podcast for the first time. We only chatted for like 5 minutes before that. But you can already sense the energy of like, yo, like you care about people, and then like you're just detached from things outside of your control, you know? Like you have clients and then you tell them what to do. If they can't don't do something, you're like, okay, cool. You'll detach from it. It's not like it affects you fully all the time. Maybe it did at the start, but I want you to kind of reverse engineer a little bit here. So you've been training yourself for 18 years, right? Lifting weights. When did you start training like other people?
Oh, just probably only moments after that.
Oh, okay, sick.
Yeah, I mean, I got enough success. I'd probably say 3 years into it. So I got enough success. I
Yeah.
did my first building show. Like I
What?
was good enough in the industry to be like, because that's what I'm a firm believer. You shouldn't be teaching anything unless you've got something substantial in it.
Yeah.
And it's 3 years in. That's me showing that I could show up to a job 3 years, if that makes sense. I could show up for what I'm trying to teach for 3 years straight.
Yeah.
And yeah, I fucking hated it. I
Wait, wait.
hated training so much. It took
Yeah.
all of the juice out of my love for lifting weights. Like I was gone because
Wow.
you know, I talk about the current state I'm in now. I live my life to serve people, right? Because it's the most fulfilling I could get. Because it's like I don't even have to fill up my cup anymore because I'm trying to fill up other people's. But it's like when I first started, it was never like that. I hated it. I hated it so much because I never understood, you know, why people didn't want to work out, didn't enjoy working out, because this is all I loved. I was like, this is great. I love showing up to the gym. I went to a dirty, like North Etobicoke, like it was called Mr. Fitness. It's no longer even there. It was
Yeah.
the crappiest of gyms, but every time you like bust open into it, it was the best. You know what I mean? It was like a meat grinder in there. And no, that sounds actually awful. Yeah, yeah. You guys could edit that one out.
We don't edit this podcast, bro.
It goes straight up.
There you go.
Let's do it. Okay, fine.
Um,
Anyway, so
If you want your meat
that was my
grinded,
first experience with fitness. It was actually how hard it was to learn how to understand people, understand where they're coming from, and actually bring them towards being inspired.
yeah. So you started lifting, and then 3 years later, you were like, "Yo, I'm pretty good at this. I see some gains." And like you did a bodybuilding competition, right?
Mhm.
So bodybuilding competition was like your third year of lifting. You were like, "Yo, I'm gonna try this out." Like a
Yeah.
whole, were you doing the whole like the full bodybuilding or like physique? Or you did like,
I'm pretty old as dust, right? So 18 years, man, there was nothing except bodybuilding. There was only
okay,
open
okay.
weight,
Oh,
right?
nice. Okay, sick. What made you
Yeah.
be like? What made you be like a couple of years in? Because you were saying your genetics were not good, and you're like, "Yo, fuck yeah, I'm just gonna do a bodybuilding competition." Complete opposite.
Well, I mean, I told you, like my biggest superpower is how ignorant I am,
Oh,
right?
sick.
You
I
know, they
love it.
call this
Yeah.
Dunning-Kruger, right? Dunning-Kruger is where it's like you know so little and you think you know so much. And then
Yeah.
I was only 3 years in, so nobody yet humbled me. I was like in it. I mean, I did okay. I worked really hard, and I thought I was a giant, right? I used to watch Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler videos, like probably again profusely that you think I was a meat grinder, but the fact is I watched it and I was so in love with bodybuilding. I was like, I could do this. And I didn't care whether my genetics wasn't there. I was like, you know, it's almost like you're breaking the identity of the past you, so it didn't really matter anymore.
Love it. And I think you mentioned you started personal training after the 3 years, and then you hated it. So you hated the part like how people just didn't get it. Like you would set up everything, routine, structure. You'd be like, hey, you have to do this, 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 but they just wouldn't be able to stick to the plan. That's the part you hated, or you just like didn't like training initially? Like what part didn't you like about it?
Yeah, it's I mean, we all have like that girlfriend where we're like, hey, you gotta watch this one movie. It's such a badass movie. You put on like, I don't know, someone like Dwayne the Rock Johnson movie or something like that. And then she just does like she's on her phone the whole time and she's not even like interested. And you're just
Yeah,
like you're fuming. You're like, can you fucking watch this movie? This is like the really good part. This is when Van Damme's gonna do a roundhouse kick to Chung Lee's head, right?
yeah,
And she's not paying attention. That's exactly what personal training felt like. It's like
mm,
you're presenting them the juice, the potion to finally like be fit and healthy and find passion towards feeling energetic and all that stuff. And they don't even seem to care. And you're like, oh,
mm,
okay, so this is tough. Like this is not easy, especially only being like 21, 22 years old. You're so
yeah.
emotionally immature. You don't know how to navigate around how hard things are. Again, I was a born quitter. I was a high school dropout at 15, right? So I didn't even
Yeah.
leave the recommended 16. I left even earlier because I was like, I'm out. This is
Yeah.
too hard. I don't like challenges. I need to just, I was literally just like, I play guitar and jerked off all day. That was like my life.
Sick. Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. It was actually pretty
Yeah, a meat grinder. Yeah. That's where you got
How
the
is
term meat grinder.
how
Yeah.
has that evolved over where you're at now in terms of like now you're still coaching, right? Like you went from a place where you didn't really like get why people weren't doing it. Now you're coaching. Now you're still coaching to this day. So how has that kind of evolved to this point?
That's a great question. So I left fitness and I came back and I found a different way of looking at fitness. And I looked at even looking at myself. It was more like I had to learn how to aspire to inspire. Or inspire to aspire to inspire. So it's like essentially I wanted to give people that that juice that I was struggling with when I was younger, right? Because the thing is, fitness is fantastic in that way. It teaches you that you're almost supposed to embrace the challenges and the uncomfortable, right? Like you're supposed to chase for failure every single set. You're supposed to essentially come up against like a weight and it's supposed to beat you no matter what. Like you're never gonna just like infinity rep that shit. And every
Yeah.
time you keep showing up, you keep doing that, and it's still something that you could translate somewhere else. And it just took me a while to like rewire how this is supposed to be my new behavior and identity to then help other people that I was doing in my whole entire life, or at least when I started lifting weights. So then when I saw that connection, I was like, now I could inspire somebody to start aspiring to like inspire others.
Yeah.
Right. So now that's why being a dad has been even easier, because obviously there's so many people you're supposed to inspire, your kids, your
Yeah.
wife, right? So
Yeah. So we'll touch on the dap point just before we get into that one. Have you realized too, like on top of you aspiring to inspire people, you realize like client by client, an individual basis, everyone has their different like clocks in their head too. Like some people get inspired a little bit faster. Some people get inspired maybe after like 9 months of telling them, hey, Katie, like, you got to do this, 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 this. Stop looking at your phone the whole time. I don't know why I said Katie. It's a weird word. It's a weird for a brown guy. But anyways, that's just like just breathe or something. Okay. So, like after 9 months, they're like, oh shit, Marcus, I get what you were saying. Like these things are compounding. Like I'm not paying attention to the little things. I'm not doing these things. And like you as a coach, you're like you're not getting too attached to the whole process of like those 9 months where she was ignoring all the stuff you were telling her. Right? Because I would say my personal story, like in a quick short way, I left accounting in 2020 and I became a personal trainer. And then I just like watched two trainers, like they used to work at Project Rise, Sharon and Mike, and I basically shadowed them for like 18 months straight. And like literally the biggest thing I learned from them, they would just detach from the client in the sense like they would tell the client everything. They would give all the value. They would try their best to inspire, but they would not force them to feel inspired. And once they actually feel inspired, that's when they start taking the actions they want to take because they feel the inspiration. Like, you can't really force the time when they actually kickstart their gains. I don't know if this is making sense or not, but because I've realized for this, yeah, I realized for this because like some clients like initially like the first jump, they're like, "Yo, I'm ready to go," and they just keep going. But then some people like 3 months down the line, it finally clicks, and then they start to make progress from there, right? But that whole 3 month process, initially, I would feel shitty because I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm not helping this person. Like they're paying me or whatever." I'm like, "Yo, what is happening?" But now I've learned to like detach from it. I'm just like, "Okay, cool. I've given them everything. I've set the game plan, and I'm checking in on them, but they just haven't clicked yet." Right?
got it. No, you're right. Um, one thing in my life, I've been incredibly lucky to get a lot of mentors in my life. And
Yeah.
from what you're even saying, one of them put it really perfectly, because I kind of came to him like this. And he was actually one of my clients who I was always very frustrated with, actually,
That's
oddly enough. But because he was so successful in business, I asked him a bunch of stuff like this, and he said something. It's going to be very resonating here. So it's like, why do they call it a breakthrough? Because first you got to take a break. So in other words, detach, right? You got to take a step back. So you take a break. And then you have a breakthrough because then you have a moment of understanding of the client. So in other words, in the first 3 months, we maybe just didn't understand exactly what they were going through to actually lead them towards where we needed to. Because I mean, it's not easy to just inspire people and understand people. Because for us, again, it just came so naturally. It was like, hey, here's the thing, follow a Ronnie Coleman workout, eat a Jay Cutler diet, and you're gonna start feeling awesome. Like take all these supplements and you're gonna feel awesome. And you're like, again, I'm like Rain Man. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm retarded. I'm like, let's go, let's rock and roll, right? Did I say it
yeah.
again? Did I say the R word again?
It's
Oh.
amazing. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the point though, to why I think this all connects to what you were saying is because when you have a breakthrough of first detachment and taking some time to think about how to understand what they're going through, then you can make a breakthrough of actually figuring out how to inspire them when it matters. Because I think I've heard you, because we're all on Instagram. I've seen you actually before, and it was one thing you said that resonated a lot, which was a lot about like sometimes you become their friend, and then you don't really feel like your coaching hat
Yeah.
is really right.
Yeah.
And I've been there before too, because the thing is, as you could already tell, you even mentioned, I was like, I'm the wholesome guy, because that was always my good approach. I wanted to make fitness feel easy and welcoming. Like before the
Yeah.
Joey Schwolls in the world, I was the guy who was just like, listen, I just want to make you feel like the gym is not this like intimidating place, right?
Yeah.
But you have to put on your coaching hat at times. So like if I have a client that isn't showing up to where it's supposed to be showing up, again, that same mentor, I asked him about this. I was like, there's like green clients, yellow clients, and red clients. What do I do about those red clients? He's like, you ditch them. He's like, you don't pay attention to them. Because at the end of the day, a red client is like a red customer, a red this, a red that. He's like, you find your yellows and you try to put them up to the green, but you have to, again, try. You have to figure out how to have a breakthrough and be like, how do I inspire them right now? Like, not in fucking 3 months, not in 6 months. How do I inspire you right fucking now? And then you get your greens and you're just like, all right, sweet, you're going to be my social proof. You're going to be my testimonials. You're going to be a kick-ass impact. You're going to have an amazing life. But you figure out your yellows to go up and your reds, you hope for the best. You literally, I'll actually tell reds, like I'll fire reds and I'll be like, listen, I can't do it. Like I'm trying to drag you towards the starting line and you haven't even come. You think paying me was your starting line. It wasn't. So when you're ready, it could be me, but from what it sounds like, you need to have a breakthrough your own self and you might need to find someone else. And that's it. And I usually recommend like 2 or 3 people.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Because that's one of the hardest things as a trainer, especially when you're trying out or like starting out in the industry. You're just trying to get everybody, right? You're like, yo, I just want everybody. I just want to make money. I just want to get in. I want to get my reps in. I want to get my feet wet. So you're just trying to, everybody, doesn't matter, whoever like looks at you, be like, hey, bro, like I want to lose belly fat. It's like, yeah, sure, bro. Like 6 weeks, I got you. But then like 6 weeks later, they look the same. Like, oh shit, bro, my bad. But initially, you just take the money, whatever it is, right? But no, like understanding, no, I'm serious. Like that's how the game is, bro. Like,
100%,
right?
100%.
But then over time, you realize like, okay, cool. Like if you really want to help them, they have to make a lifestyle change, which has to come through a breakthrough, like you just mentioned, right? Because if they get out of this mindset of like, yo, like I'm gonna hire somebody for 2, 3 months and I'm gonna get something out of it, nothing is really gonna happen. They're gonna look the same in 6 months, right? Or worse, maybe. But if they come through a breakthrough and they're like, yeah, I want to make a lifestyle change now. And bro, like I think I've like converted people at this point on like the call itself. They will come for like fat loss. I'm like, no, bro, you need to get jacked. You need more muscle, right? And like I like reverse, like I'm like, yo, you've been yo-yoing your whole life. You do the same shit every time. You hire somebody, you lose 60 pounds, and then you gain 90 pounds back, right? The whole point is you don't have muscle mass and habits, right? So once you build those habits and that muscle mass, now you're like actually in a juicy mindset, right? Or a jacked mindset. What do you see? Or a meat grinder mindset, whatever it is. Actually, no, not meat grinder. That's a little sus. Um, but yeah,
It's
no, that's
never good
amazing.
out of my mouth and I feel like you're trying to make it and I'm like, just leave it.
Yeah.
Leave it.
Yeah, so one thing, the whole the funny contradicting thing here is like you label yourself a little bit as like, yo, I quit, like I quit high school and like, that. But then your biggest superpower is like you're so ignorant that you don't quit.
Yep.
It's crazy, right? Like it's like if you think about it, it's one of those things. It's like a curse and like one of the biggest blessings. It's like, oh, certain things you quit, but then certain things I'm just gonna keep going here. Like, doesn't matter if I should quit or not. I'm just gonna keep ripping it. So fitness obviously was one of those areas where you're just like, I'm just gonna keep going forever, pretty much. I'm just gonna outlast everybody, and that's the game I'm gonna play, right?
Yep.
And you have to like it a lot to do that, right? And that's probably the biggest thing. I don't know. You probably have advice for people who are like getting into training, but I'm thinking one of them is you have to actually like the game of like fitness yourself. You can't just get it because a lot of people are trying to just be coaches now, right? Online coaches or trainers, whatever it is,
So turning
right?
into a trainer.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess because like I'm just curious because like your mindset is like, okay, it's on these certain things I quit, but then certain things you're just like, I'm just gonna fucking just go all in. Doesn't even matter if I'm doing good or not. I'm just not gonna stop no matter what, right? Fuck the genetics. I'm gonna do a bodybuilding competition where I'll be a naked on stage and like get judged, right? So it's just funny, right? Like because their body, bro, competition is not a joke. Like I'm getting ready for a comp in November, and bro, I just came back from like a 55-minute stairmaster session, right? And I was like, bro, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, why am I voluntarily choosing to do this? Right? So, but I like it. Like, don't get me wrong, I like it, right? Uh, but some people like they want certain things, but they don't actually like it, right? So how do you differentiate that? I don't even know the question. I feel like I just rambled, but
I mean, okay, so how can someone use the superpower if they may not even have it or develop the superpower? Fair enough, right?
there you go. Yeah, good job. See, this guy's so smart.
Hey man, I got big ass ears, man. I'll get it.
Yeah,
So I mean, I think the first one is I'm a very process oriented
you
guy.
do
So I
have big
follow
ears, yeah.
the
That's
process.
now let's see the years, bro. Fuck, man. Why'd you say? Okay, continue. That was gonna be really good.
So I'm very process oriented.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm the one who I fall in love with processes. So the same thing I would do for a person, I would say the exact same thing. Like how do you make it so much smaller? Because again, a lot of times we just jump to conclusions to again emotion. too much emotion, right? You got to detach from emotion, because sometimes it's just about what's the most comfortable you can be when it comes to just starting, right? Or like detaching. What could be easy? So I mean, again, you say 55 minutes sucks, and for a lot of people, 55 minutes would suck. And then it's like, if someone needs to just get started, you usually would just tell them, just get on the Stairmaster for 5 minutes. The brain could go like, oh, what the fuck's 5 minutes gonna do? You shut that part off. You're like, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're talking. Like, you didn't hire me to talk. You hired me to tell you what to do. So I told you what to do. Because I would do the same thing if I was 200 pounds overweight.
Yeah.
Right. And I tell that to my clients too. I'm like, I'm just doing exactly what I would do if I was inside your bodysuit. If I was in your bodysuit, I'd be like, I just do exactly what the guy who's did this with like hundreds of clients before. You know what I mean? Don't talk. Like,
Yeah.
right. And then you just start off small, right? Because you start off small, you starts chipping away. And then you could even start doing it. And this is probably where it probably started developing. So I'm gonna have a quick story about my pops. He's still around. But it's like I'm gonna have a quick story about my pops. He always tended to be a person who like was a contrarian. And I didn't identify what that was because I didn't even know what a fucking contrarian was. Because again, I'm a high school dropout, so words were very they were like spiders to me. So, anyways, so he was very much of a contrarian. So it's like if you're driving past, you're like, let's say you're on the 401 and there's an accident to your right side, everybody will do what? They'll usually turn their head and they will look. And I remember being a small boy inside the car, and he would like deliberately say he's not going to look. He's like, this is where everybody turns to go look, and then this is when they cause another accident. He's like, I don't look at that stuff. And I remember growing up, I wouldn't look. So I was almost like, it would be like part of my identity, be like, okay, if everybody goes right, I'm gonna go left. If everybody zigs, I'm gonna go zag. If everybody hates rain, I'm gonna like rain. If everybody hates black licorice, I'm gonna like black licorice, right? So it's like kind of the same concept where it's kind of like, can you just talk yourself into just being almost like it's part of your identity? Because like when you even what you say, man, you're like you're on the phone call with men or women, whatever I don't know who you have phone calls with, but it's like you're on the phone call with them and you're talking them into becoming more of like a lifestyle and becoming jacked. What you're really saying, from what it sounds like to me, is you need to turn this into identity. Like you're turning this into some sort of commodity where it's kind of like, okay, you take this product, and then after 6 months, the product's done, and then after the product's done, what happens when the product's done? It's like a video game. The video game's done. Wait for version number 2. You're like, no, I want you to be like obsessed with looking like Jay Cutler, like me.
Yeah.
I want you to be obsessed with look like Dorian Yates, right? So it's like you're telling them without even saying it, change your identity, because your identity sucks, and your identity's led you towards like alcohol on the weekends, not being able to say no at cookouts because you're just trying to appease your mama and you're being a bitch. Simple as that.
Yeah. No, it's big. It's big, man. Like, so a lot of people, like, again, when these transformations or the whole identity shift, the reason, again, you probably agree with this, Kags, you probably agree with this too, is like, if you're constantly going in these waves of like diets or whatever, you're still letting the outside stuff control you, right? The food is still controlling you. The dopamine shit is still controlling you. The cheap meals are still controlling you. All these things are still controlling instead of you being in control. So like the identity shift comes in, yo, you're just in control and you have the habits of a jacked individual that will actually get you jacked forever, technically. But then you also are in control whenever you do want to go and drink or like have food or whatever, you're making a conscious decision to do that instead of those things making decisions for you, right? So I think that's one of the biggest shifts, but that takes a minute. So it's like, especially in our community, bro, like here, it's like that's like a every weekend thing, especially in the summer. Weddings, receptions, barbecues, cookouts, whatever it is. I don't know if brown people do cookouts, so that's a little, but whatever, like, like things like that. It's like those things are identity, and those are things that people relate to as like, oh, this would makes me fit into the society, right? Like this is, I have to do this so I can fit in, right? But like if you realize it's like, yo, those are the actual things that are not making you like your own self, which is kind of weird, and shift the identity, then you're like, oh, okay, sick, yo, like this is interesting. And then once they start creating momentum, then obviously you've worked with 100, 200 people, 1,000 people, whatever it is. It's like they notice it and they're like, oh shit, like bro, you were right. And I ignored that bitch voice that you were talking about in Stairmaster for 5 minutes, and it fucking changed my life. Holy shit! Now I ignore that bitch voice all the time. So it is massive. And I always like joke about it. I'm like, yo, I'm just trying to make this Jack thing into like a cult, bro. Like, and just turn. It is, bro. Like, it's just turn into a cult where you're just like, yo, just it's gonna be good for a lot of people and people around you. So yeah,
Well, again, yeah, because if you start to peel the onion, okay, here. I thought about this before I got on the podcast. I was like, okay, this is probably one thing that needs to be talked about, because this is like, dad, non-dad, doesn't matter. It's when you come into fitness, it's going to expose how underdeveloped you are emotionally. Right? That's why everybody keeps talking about like, you know, body dysmorphia and all that stuff and learn how to say no. See, you got his cocktail.
I just got cocktail in my eyes, bro. I got creatine in my eyes. My eyes are gonna get jacked. Oh
Jack,
shit.
like in 2 gram size. Yeah.
Oh.
So
Oh, is my eyes red? It's
Now
getting
you're
red.
good.
That's okay. So continue, bro. That was a really good topic.
no, so yeah, it says what I was gonna say. That's what fitness does. And it also shows how lack of change and challenge you're actually approaching, like developing in your life, right? Because when you do
Yeah,
fitness, like let's say if you want to get lean, a lot of times men have got I've gotten lean and then I got soft after, you know, right? I just got like, man, I've gotten lean before, so I live in my past. All right, but you forge your past, but it doesn't make your future. So you are only who you are today. So if you're all like, oh, I used to be ripped, it's like it doesn't matter if it was 24 hours ago or 24 years ago. Like you gotta be solid right now. Are you solid right now? Are you ripped right now? Are you strong right now? Are you energetic right now? Are you like where you want to be, where you want to be? And it's like a lot of times that's what fitness does. It just exposes. Because like even when I heard what you said, I'm like, you throw me into an Indian culture, all right? And you said you got to now go to their weddings and all that stuff. I could show up because I could look at every single one and just be like, I'm not having any of that.
yeah,
If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. But I mean, like, if I'm under the circumstances, if I'm trying to lose weight, all that stuff. So obviously, we're all talking about this being a lifestyle.
for
So this is
sure.
not being, you're not afraid of the food. Afraid of the
Yeah,
food is I'm not even cutting it. I can't even eat it because I think I'm going to like gain weight. No, afraid of the food is yeah, that's that. But for me, I'm talking about like, you know, that's why whenever I hear clients and they're just like, oh, you know, my wife made this one meal. And I'm like, if my wife made that one meal, I'd look her in the face and be like, no, because only reason why I would eat it is because I emotionally can't handle her not being like balanced, but I can.
yeah, yeah. And
Like
bro,
if you
like, yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, no, I was gonna say, and like sometimes, like as guys, like I know I communication sometimes takes a backseat too, right? Like if you literally just communicate with the other person, it's like, hey, like I'm on this diet thing, or like I want to make this a lifestyle, so I'm gonna be avoiding these foods for a little while, not forever, just because I'm trying to make a little identity shift. Communicate that. People understand. Like it's the funny part. People do understand, but we just don't like communicate it. Like I know I sometimes like now I've gotten I won't say lucky or fortunate, but like now I identify as the person who just like trains people and like is just like getting jacked individual. So like people get surprised even if I do eat something else, right? So like if I show up to like a event and I have like oatmeal in my hand because I brought it from my house, they're like, oh cool, normal. This guy's normal like that. Like he does this, right?
Oh man,
But
I got a good story for you. Keep
but
going.
but like but like if you're like say like your husband and wife and like your wife is cooking some tasty stuff and every night just cooking and on the check-ins it's like oh wife cooked this again wife cooks it like did you talk to her did you tell her like yeah I'm trying to get jacked or I'm trying to make a shift because you guys can probably cook together and have like sick quality time too and make some bomb food that fits within your thing and it could be like double whammy yo you get attention wifey time and good food and then you also get jacked so there's like so many ways to
So
do it we just don't communicate right.
no, you're really right. But I'm gonna share one thing again. So now if
Mhm.
a dad's listening, this is really like
Yeah,
not just that specific, but like dads need to like get this
future
through their
dad.
head. Yeah, you gotta you gotta prepare for greatness, right? So if you think about it, if you're a really disciplined man, like a sturdy, unmovable, like immovable leader, right? And somebody said to you, like, you know, you have to like what do you got to do to be fit? Stick to your diet, stick to your sleep regimen, stick to your exercise regimen. If you want to be that, you need to prepare for that before you even have it. So it's like if you're a grown man and it's like you're already complaining about like your wife, you're complaining about jobs, you're complaining about like kids, you're complaining about your own like current state, all that stuff. You're like you're not even believing, you're not preparing for the greatness. You got to already be there. You got to be like I'm a fit man. So my fit man is like I will figure out how to manage my wife. If I have to say no and she has to be upset, I will be already prepared to deal with her emotions. Right? That's the same thing with kids. Like I go through Dr. Becky psychology stuff. So any dads who like that resonated, that's literally like the goat. And it's like, what does she usually say? She's like, you got to prepare for the kid to have a tantrum because kids are gonna have fucking tantrums and you cannot stop it. Like you could fucking like Action Jackson in the back of their head, but it won't work. So the only thing you can do is you have to prepare yourself, your state. So are you ready to go to an Indian wedding and be like, someone's gonna be like, no, come on, just like eat this food. Come on, eat this. Are you prepared for that emotion? And most men aren't. So that's what I'm trying to also get them to realize. They have to be prepared emotionally to like handle saying no before it even happens. Because then once it happens, it becomes, like you said, it's like clockwork. I show up with oatmeal and everybody's like, no, I've been saying no to this for like months. So now they just get it. So they don't even ask me anymore. So you just have to chip away at them. Because if you think about it, how do I say this without being like egoic? But it's like most people are so mentally unstable that they'll only push a couple times before they even quit.
Yeah,
sure.
Right?
like other people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you keep look. I told you this when I first met Kag. I was like, Filipinos and all that stuff. It's always like appeasing their moms and stuff like that. Like having to like, because it's not part of the culture. I'm like, what's the word evolution for? I'm supposed to evolve. I'm evolving over my parents. I make more money than them. I live a better life than they ever will have. And I have to be a better man than him, a better father than them. I got to do all that shit. So it's like, why can't I evolve past what they were doing? I have a fucking cell phone. Like that's evolve, right? Like I might as well evolve me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. It's just like I think we get into the norm, right? Like this is the norm. If I'm at a social event, I'm gonna eat this, and then I'm gonna again it comes to the whole conversation of not being fitting or like not fitting in. But I guess when you're a dad, now that's like there's like a notch up, right? Now you're leading by example another person in human maybe, or like as a kid, like you're leading, right? So maybe that makes a difference.
How
Um
was that? How has being a dad sort of changed your outlook on fitness and like what you're kind of doing? Like, do you feel like it's made it harder or change the standards that you have for yourself? Because I think that's a big thing. It's like a lot of times I get on calls with guys who are dads and they're like, yo, it's hard, this, that. Like, how has it changed for you personally?
All right. It's not hard. It's actually easier. But the thing that is hard is how like little control you have of like what you used to have. Right. So not just obviously time and all that stuff. Like I used to be young, man. Like I miss that. Like I'm full still in aesthetics. I squeeze that lemon as much as possible. But I know pre-podcast you were asking like, where's that at? Did that change? Yeah. I just want to be obviously fit enough to run with my kids, energetic enough to want to do it, and obviously injury free. But that doesn't actually take that much time to sustain. So once
yeah,
those were sustainable, I was like, no, I want to be a jacked aesthetic dad because not because I'm a dad, but because I'm pushing 40 and that's going to go away eventually. Like everything goes away. Like performance is never going to be at its best, but you could still keep up in the ante, but your body will never look as sharp as it did, like let's say in your prime in your 20s. And that hurts me a lot every moment I think about that. So that's why every moment I'm like, aesthetics is the only thing that I care about right now. Because I have this vision, because my mentor, he's from Toronto, actually. His name's Kane Sumabat. His name's Timberwolf on Instagram. He's my mentor. And at 42 years old, he had a photo shoot and it was the best he ever looked. So my goal is to chase after that 42-year-old look. So my mind, you could ask me to do anything. Oh, go do Tough Mudder, go do run a marathon. I'm like, suck a bag of dicks. I'm gonna do that photo shoot. After that's done, sure, we'll do all the, obstacle courses, calisthenics, you know what I mean, all that stuff. Good job. Until that's done, I gotta squeeze this lemon because
yeah.
it's all I have left. That sounds terrible.
Oh, that
No,
was
it's
fire. It
yeah.
sounds like you just have like that vision, that purpose, and that's where you're working towards. And that's not going to waver regardless of the situation around you.
Well, I should answer, yes, and I should answer your question why it's easier as a dad, in my opinion, is because if you shift your identity, you will be surprised what man shows up when your back's against the wall. Because when your time is limited, your stress is way. I've never dealt with stress like this in my life. Like never. Like every day, I'm like constantly trying to hold back yelling and emotions and all that stuff, right? Every day. I never dealt with that when I was in my 20s, obviously. It was easy. But because of that, I'm rising above because I'm like, now I'm being challenged constantly. Where when I was younger, I got away with being a dropout. Like, you don't get away with being a dropout. You shouldn't get away. I should have been like thrown out of the house or something. Like
Yeah.
something, obviously like old generation school, but it's like I was never challenged. And then the moment I got challenged, I started to, I started annie up. I'm like, okay, fuck, challenges means you could actually get better constantly. So it's like, you know, fitness became so easy then. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I'd rather be in the gym than at home. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather be in the kitchen than at home because they're not in the kitchen for sure, too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I always try to avoid my kids half the time. So I'm like, getting fit as a dad is easy. So I'm like, I'll do anything to just be like on a call with men. I'll be on a like, tell me where to go. Like, just get me out of this fucking
It's
bed.
like it's like the analogy of getting jacked too, right? Like the more you challenge the muscle, the more it grows. You basically are getting challenged in life, the more you're gonna grow. And then other things seem easier. The weights we did 10 years ago may seem easier now because you've adapted to it over time because you've challenged yourself more and more, right? And I think it's another big thing is like um experience, right? So like for example, once you experience this level of stress, of a dad stress, now this stress in the gym is like, yo, fuck, I like that stress way, but so I'm gonna go do that. Like I'd rather go do that, right? So it's just like relative for like a guy who's like 20 or like, not into fitness at all, but knows he needs to improve his fitness, whatever. It's like they've been used to sitting, watching Netflix and jerking off, right? Like you were saying. And then now the gym is like, holy shit, that's like way more challenging. Like it's just way easier to go like this. But that's like bicep curl. That's way harder. So it's like now it's relative. Now it's like you went from that to this, and now it's like dad. It's like, oh shit, yo, that's like light work, right? But like most dads, this I think big thing I think Kegs was asking this before, time management. This is where it kind of kicks in, where like how do you manage your time, right? Because like obviously the kids, you can't predict some shit, right? Especially in the early stages. I don't know how old your kid is, but I'm guessing when they're younger, like sleep always gets messed up, things like that, which obviously throws off a lot of things. And then like, so how do you manage your time as a dad and getting fitness integrated into it?
Right, right. No, that's a great question. I have a saying with the men. All right, so it's confusion kills consistency because layers limit focus. And the reason why that's the case is because we deal with layers all the time. Like when you're in your 20s, your layer is like, okay, just try to, get a girlfriend, get a job, try to just keep progressing in life, get out of the house, stuff like that. But those aren't a lot of layers, in my opinion. Because I'm like, now that I'm like a dad, I got more layers. I got a 6-year-old, that's one layer. I got a 5-year-old, that's another layer. And each day they add on like 5 different layers. Feed me, wash me, take me to the park, put on this TV show. So they just keep putting on layers. Work puts on layers. Your wife puts on layers. And then of course your internal happiness is putting on layers. So that's why I say layers limit focus, because the more layers you have, the less focus you have. So how I time manage myself is the same way I time manage my clients. I eliminate the layers. Okay. So it's like, you typical man, you ask them why they're not in shape. I don't know what to eat. I don't know how much to eat. I don't know what to buy. I don't know how to cook it. I don't know how to do this. All right, cool. How about if I just give you a fucking meal plan with a grocery list, with a video on exactly how to cook it, and even a video on how to go buy it at the grocery store in case you're too fucking retarded. I wanted to just say it 3 more times. All right. And you give them all that stuff. You remove layers, and then suddenly they can manage time, because when they were in their 20s, I truly believe most men could handle the layers of going to the gym, getting laid, all that stuff. But it's when they added too many layers they couldn't handle. So if you eliminate the layers, boom, you can manage your time back to like what you did when you were 20. You just have to be a little bit more strategic with it. And that's 101 on how I teach men, and even how I get in shape. Like I did a shred back in March. I just followed a meal plan. I didn't want to think. I was like, get thinking out of here. Don't give me calorie counting. Don't give me nothing. I was like, I want to eat the same thing, and if I want to change it, I'll just like switch the recipe, but it'll be the same calories and macros. And I don't want to think. And that's the one thing I recognized growing up, as growing older. I'm like, I just don't want to think. I've got in shape eating ice cream and protein shakes. I've got in shape doing chicken, rice, and broccoli. I just want like just plug and play, put it in my life so I can manage the other layers in my life.
That's massive. Yeah. Now, bro, touching on the meal plan thing, even though I've been like tracking macros and following like similar food structure for I think a minute now, probably like 2015, 2016, whatever it is. But like now, this last, I think 4 or 5 weeks, I've been like on an actual meal plan that I'm like sticking to every single day, no matter what. And that's after like 9 years. Like I've kind of followed the meal plan 5, 6 days a week, and then one day I'll have like a couple meals, and then I'll have, whatever, but still fits in the macros, still gets the physique goals, whatever it is. But this meal plan, bro, like eliminated all thinking. Like I'm gonna eat this at this time. That's it. I'm not gonna think about it, and I'm gonna adjust something maybe in a month span if like the result is not happening, right? But follow the meal plan, follow the workout routine, follow the cardio routine. Everything else, you're just like, okay, cool. Just simplified, right? You're not thinking about it, and that makes such a massive difference. But in our heads, we put it as like massive effort. Like, oh my God, it's so much effort meal prepping, so much effort, getting all the meals ready, so much effort saying no to people. And this comes out to the whole conversation we're talking about emotional stuff, right? It's like emotional stuff. That's what bro say it. Emotional. So, right, saying no to people when like you're following a meal, because like this is where I don't know how you feel about this. So Filipinos, like in your culture, family gatherings and food are a big thing, right? And I'm sure a lot of clients that you get, a lot of dads you get, they have a lot of like gatherings and events to go to on a weekly basis, right? So if someone
Mhm.
follows a meal plan, how do you get around the whole events? Obviously, you have the conversation of like, hey, you have to choose greatness, right? You want to choose what you want, right? You can't keep living based on what other people want you to be, right? That's a good conversation. But initially, people still have like that hindrance process, right? Of like, okay, I still want to integrate this into my life, right? Make it a lifestyle kind of thing. So instead of like a meal plan, do you have like, okay, so a couple days a week, they'll have like an off-plan meal, or like those 2 days will be more like calorie tracking, that kind of vibe, or how do you structure that managing time if they're not sticking to a meal plan every single day?
No, that's a good question. I
Yeah.
mean, firmly believe that only probably happens like a couple times per week where you're going to need like to eat off the plan.
Yeah.
And if you look at the 80/20, I remember I did the math of this and I was just like, oh, this is crazy. If you do 80%, your meal plan, 20% off the meal plan, I think 20% out of a week is like 4 or 5 meals. That's a lot of fucking meals.
That's a
So
lot.
that's already a good standard. So you're saying to me, okay, so 16, 17 meals, I get to eat on the meal plan. That's usually breakfast and lunches, and then some dinners I'm gonna get the fuck around. So I just teach them how to fuck around, usually about like, heavy on this nutrient, low on this nutrient, stuff like that, right? Like no
Like,
calorie. I don't like pulling calorie counting out.
really?
Listen, I did calorie counting for like 10 plus years with my clients, and it had lots of success. But again,
Mm-hmm.
my new philosophy is just like eliminate the guesswork.
Yeah.
And I've been in Spain for 3.5 weeks, and I don't count anything. I'm not counting anything. Like I'm just
Yeah.
just eating really,
Yeah.
really good, and it also helps with the food relationship, right?
Yeah. No, I was because I think we had a couple like nutrition people on previously on like a podcast and they were talking the same thing on meal plans, right? I think more and more meal plans make everything more predictable and easy. Like you don't have to think about it. Calories give you more flexibility, and sometimes when you have options, that's where shit goes downwards a little bit, right? Because once you start knowing I can fuck around a little bit, then that has a domino effect. Oh, maybe I'll skip a rep here in the gym, or maybe I'll skip like 5 minutes of cardio, or maybe what, I'll sleep a little bit later, or what, I'll like do this at night. So everywhere flexibility comes in, we become too flexible, right? Um, so that leads bleeds into everything, and I've realized this over time actually, because I've been always about calories, right? And I recently maybe like did more calorie meal plan, and now I've gone into the depth of like non-training day and training day meal plans, and like meal structure around training window, away from training, pre-bed nutrition, like a lot of little nuances, which makes it over complicated per se. I don't do that for all the clients per se, but like certain people, if they want to get complicated, will do it. But bro, like these things predict results much easier. You can literally like predict the change that's coming. And a client comes for a result, right? So like yeah, continue. What are you gonna say something?
No, I mean, you addressed a very, very important part. It's not just actually the result they want,
Yeah.
because again, we're gonna go on the emotional things, right? Is that how we
Yeah.
call it? Emotional.
Emotional stuff.
Again, a mentor of mine said there's three beliefs that need to occur. They need to believe in the person that's helping them, the thing that's helping them, the product, and themselves. And if you give them the result very quickly, they will start
Yeah.
to believe in themselves. They already believe in us. They look like, man, they look at us and we're just kind of like, how do you fucking do it? Like, you just keep showing up. You keep talking about it. Even on Instagram, if you just keep showing up, they're like, I don't know how you do it. I could barely even like do this one thing, shitty
Yeah.
thing consistently.
Yeah.
And you guys do this amazing, right? So it's
Yeah.
just belief, right? It's just like the result is just belief because it's all just emotion, man. I wouldn't show up to anything if I didn't believe I was going to be like capable of doing it because it's too hard. You like
Yeah.
easy, like easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
It's a
could
little
show up.
yeah. It's a little funny, right? Because like some things we'll do, even though we know we might not be the best at it, right? But like some things like a bodybuilding competition, like even I'll agree, like my genetics are not the best for bodybuilding physique per se. Like takes me forever. I can't even get abs properly, right? Even if I just keep shredding down whatever it is. But I know that. But I just like it so much that I'm like I just love the lifestyle. Like I like the whole doing the process, right? And I know for a fact And I always like I have this like quote on my phone too. Probably should have it memorized, but basically it's like commit to the fuck, what is it? Commit to the controllables. Fuck, this is a good this is a really good one. I have it right here. Oh, right here. Commit to the daily controllables and surrender to the outcome. Right? And bro, like that's one of my biggest things. I'm like, yo, if I just do the inputs, outcome is like inevitable. Like it's gonna happen. Like it literally, it might look a little different than what I expected, maybe, right? Or it might look even better. Who knows? But as long as I do the inputs, that's all I really can do, right? And I think a lot of people end up like honing in on the outcome way too much, and that's human nature. Like we want a specific outcome, obviously, but if you shift that every single day, that's why I have it on my phone, so I think about it every day, right? Thinking about controllables, inputs. That's it, and you check the list and then you move on next day, check the list again, and you keep checking the list, bro. And then you just show up and smile, right?
So the
You
big
brought up,
thing,
yeah, you brought up a really valuable point though, because everything you said is absolutely spot on, right? Because the thing is, it's almost like I'm half Asian, right? I love numbers, right? Like just put
Yeah,
in the fucking data, it'll always come out the same way. But the
yeah,
one thing I was going to say, this is where fitness gets really complicated and it gets really deep rooted. So, bear with me if any man out there is listening, going like, oh, fuck, this guy's like a little too like woo woo or whatever like that. But, again, being a dad, you know, my job, my trying at least on my job is to get my kids prepared for the world. And for me, prepared for the world is mostly being emotionally stable, emotionally strong, emotionally focused, right? Because the thing is, whatever they want to do, I could care less as long as they got a lot of skills, but most importantly, emotion. And I had already addressed this in the podcast already, was saying it's kind of like fitness will expose where you're emotionally weak. And where you're emotionally weak, this is going to really be that whole, oh, you know what? Like, I can't handle when it starts getting tough. When it starts getting tough, this is where you get those like clients that are like, oh, I gotta like change up the meals, or oh, I need like some sort of like break in the system. I need, and or like my wife presented this food in front of me, or like when I was out, I couldn't say no to the drinks. It's because they were emotionally weak since they were fucking young and they never got emotionally strong. That's just the fucking facts. I've already been strongly admitting that I was a very weak-minded human being for a very long time, and I still I'm trying to shoot back those demons every single day. But I am very much aware of the fact that I am not emotionally weak now, or like not as emotionally weak enough to like execute my plans. And half the time, most men that fail, it's just because they're just emotionally weak and they don't want to fucking admit it. And it's like it goes back down to the parenting. It's like, you do something wrong, parenting yells at you, go to your room. That's actually not how you're supposed to discipline emotions, because then the person's not able to express their emotions. So nowadays, men usually do that with alcohol, eating like, some fucking donut in Toronto. I got to eat 12 of them for whatever reason to make myself feel like shit. And you're just kind of like, yo, bro, I've been there before. I'm not judging you, but you are still emotionally weak. Like, because it's just at the
yeah.
end of the day, like your identity is
yeah.
you don't want to handle hard things. And it started from being in home, being disciplined not the right way, being disciplined at school. You're essentially just been wrong all the time. And then you're just saying to yourself, all right, man, I just want to like not feel wrong. So I'm just going to go to these quick vices. And I'm like, it's all
So how do
right.
you say for example a practical application where like say I'm a dad, right? And like, I just keep putting myself out there as a dad. Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't happen soon. But okay, so um
As much as possible.
so like I'm a dad, right? And like I'm going through this thing of like, hey Marcus, bro, like I've been like on the circle of like and not getting results, still like not losing weight, not putting on muscle, not being disciplined, not being consistent. And again, initial consultation, you tell me all these things, right? And whatever, and obviously on a check-in basis, weekly, daily basis, whatever, make sure executing the plan. And like I'm stuck, I'm like on it 4 weeks, 5 weeks, I'm consistent, right? And then like say like I have a vacation with the family, Mexico trip happens, right? For like a week. And then like I come back and I gain like 5 pounds back and I go back to my old habits, right? And say like you have that conversation again, but now I just can't get it clicked. Like I just can't go back to what I was doing before, like what you gave me, right? How do you, what kind of like words do you use or like what kind of conversation would you have with that client of like, hey bro, like this is what you need to do to like get back on track? Because like I don't know how it goes, but you see like especially like if you a male, right? A father, especially a dad, you tell him, hey bro, like you're emotionally weak. I'm sure you don't say that. Maybe you do. I don't know how it works, but what kind of conversation is that going towards, right? And how do you use words carefully to be like not to offend them, but also trigger certain emotions in them to be like, oh shit, yo, like this guy's right. Like I gotta get my shit together.
No, it's a really, really great question. So it's like you're essentially saying somebody who's like who caught fire, lost the fire, and they have to get back to fire.
Yeah, that's
All
such a
right.
sick summary. Look, it's so smart, bro. It's fire.
I mean, again, everything comes first. Just it's not about understanding them. That you have to understand them. It's about having them feel understood. There's a big, big difference between the two of them, right? Because the thing is, if you understand them, that's important because then they're not going to feel understood if you don't understand them. So you gotta get down deep and you gotta start thinking about maybe where they're at. You're like, okay, have I ever had this before in my life, or have I ever trained a client like this and fixed it? Okay, cool. I probably understand what they're going through right now, right? And I definitely know what it's going through. Like it's like at the bodybuilding competition, bro. You're probably gonna have a bodybuilding competition, and then right after, you're just gonna be so like you gave everything you got. What's the purpose anymore to like push hard? You might miss the pushing hard, but you're like, ah, fuck, I got nothing left. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right? Same thing with him. So there you go. I just gave you an analogy that's already relating to perhaps the moment that, and then once they feel understood that you understand, you start going even deeper. So then you're just kind of like, okay, in a perfect world, what would then be the goal? Forget about all your emotions right now. What would be the goal? So you first find out what the result they would want. And you go really deep. You know what I mean? Like, what do you want all of it? 20 pounds down? Why? What do you want? What does that look like? Medium shirts? Why? What does that look like? You know what I mean? College years? You know what I mean? Like, what shirt would you even wear? Like, look, I just fucking started wearing this shirt. I'm gonna start fucking. I want to look good in this shirt. You know what I'm saying? I want my arms to add an extra inch in this. That's my goal. That's a result. So once you find their results, then you find out more why, right? Like
yeah,
really deeper whys, right? Because you start finding out the whys, you just kind of like, okay, oh well, I want to show up more for my family. Why would you want to do that? Because that's not enough. I don't give a fuck if you want to show. Who doesn't want to show up for the family? That sounds like surface level bullshit. So then I keep
yeah.
asking it,
And
and
you can
I'll
keep
vent.
showing up. I think like you can show up at a really shitty state. Like showing up is different than actually showing up, right? But yeah,
That's what I'm
continue.
saying.
Yeah,
Showing up and like constantly like being a leader, there's two different things. You can just know if you're a fucking leader. You don't need to fucking even have an acknowledgement of like a kid going like, hey daddy, you're like really Superman. It's like I don't need that shit. I know I'm Superman, motherfucker. Like shut the fuck up.
yeah,
And it's like but the point though is that's the aura you're trying to like create. So then I asked why, and they're just like, because deep down inside, I never really believed that I was capable of doing something like this. So by doing this, I would actually start to break old patterns of my belief and actually become the person I believe I am. And then the last question I'll usually ask is who then needs to show up? Like, how is this going to be possible? Like, how are you going to achieve this result? And most men, and I usually, I'm from the 90s, right? So I'm always going to use like some sort of like character. And I'll always get a client to give some sort of character. And sometimes they'll give me like Rocky Balboa, because Rocky Balboa had no skills, had no reason to be in the ring. Yet every single time he got hit and got knocked down, what did he do?
I'll back up. Yeah,
You got back up. And that's fitness 101. Most of these motherfuckers stay down like little bitches. You got to get the fuck up. So what? You suck. Paul's going to win. So what? He's chiseled to the Carl Weathers is the most good, like his body. I would take his body fucking tomorrow, guy. So he
yeah,
looks good, talks good, is better boxer than you, taller than you, probably has a bigger schlong than you, meat grinder shit. And it's
yeah.
like, so when a client says Rocky Balboa, I'm like, all right, so then you're not gonna fucking take a lick and then stay down. You're gonna get the fuck up, even when Mickey's telling you to stay down. So just fucking get up. And then when you give them that, they usually see why this is so important and what result I really want, and understand this is not about actually just getting into a t-shirt. This is about embodying something way bigger, man.
No,
Yeah,
that's awesome. I feel like getting back into it now. Yeah,
that was a great way to sort of understand where they're at, figure out what they're trying to do in terms of get the result, figure out why they're trying to do it, and then sort of embody this person that they want to become and
Yeah.
get them to start sort of light that fire from day one again, right? And I think you just nailed down the blueprint for like
Alter
reigniting
ego, baby.
the fire.
Alter ego.
yeah.
Fuck, I get
I
inside
think
that, man. I
yeah,
still think I'm Ronnie Coleman. I don't give a fuck. I know I'm not Ronnie Coleman. I know, like, I don't got the size, but I don't give a fuck, man. I go in that gym, man. I want to lift as heavy as humanly possible.
yeah. And bro, like I think this can apply to like not even if you're a dad, not a dad, whatever, like any person. If you just go through this breakdown process, like you just went through, if you listen to this, right? Of like, yo, initially, what's the thing you want? Like, why do you want it? Like, actually dig deep why, not surface level, right? It's like, oh, yo, I want to be jacked, so like, I can like, girls look at me, like something deeper than that, right? Whatever it is, actually dive into it, and then like ask yourself, like, what do you need to actually do? If you literally ask, most people don't ask that question, right? It's like, well, I don't know what to do. It's like, hey, what would you do? Like, what would the changes you will make? Like, if you look at your current day to day, like, if you look at everything you do in a day, what are the things that are serving you, not serving you? Just literally reflect like that, bro. Like, most people can just make like a change such in a speedy manner, you know? I use big words this podcast. I think it's his influence. It's crazy. But yeah, like it's literally like I don't think we reflect enough. I don't think we critically think enough, right? And
Many
yeah,
layers, brother. There's too
huh?
many layers. There's
Too
too
many
many layers
layers.
there. Hey.
Yeah, but okay, sick, bro. I have a last. Can you have a question? I have a
No,
last
I'm good.
question. No? So this is something with like your business related, right? Reversing to okay, 3 years you did PT and then you quit and then you came back. When you came back, did you do it in person again or you switched straight to online?
I did in person for 5 years.
5 years, three and then five, so 8 years total.
No, no, no. Like, oh yeah, probably like 8 years total.
8 years, and then you did online after that for the last
Yeah,
whatever years.
yeah. I went into online. I mean, it was also COVID, so it was almost like I was,
I have to, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
that makes sense.
Um,
So with the with the business and traveling, how do you manage that? Because like again, this is, I guess it's probably related to the managing layers and simplifying everything.
it's also yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of it. It's just systems. Everything's systems. I mean, like I'm a type of man that I want to have like 10, 6, 7 figure businesses. I want to run all of those things. And I just want
Yeah.
systems to run those things. I want to have like the ability to go live in any country for the rest of my life and not worry about like, oh, well, how much money does this cost? Because I'm that's where I'm living right now. I'm like, I'm always like, oh, okay, I gotta fucking make the money, got all that stuff. But I don't
Yeah.
want to do that. I want to be a person who just kind of like has a system. So I use systems for fitness and just I want to use the same systems for business as well.
Fire, yeah.
Fire.
Any last like words for people who, are maybe dads or not even dads, but have been kind of going in this yo-yo cycle of like sometimes getting into gym, sometimes not going to the gym, fitness, whatever. What would you say? I know we've touched on a lot of different points, but you have to summarize it. What would you say?
Yeah, I'll summarize it pretty perfectly. It's
Yeah.
like, I understand what you're going through. I really do, because I sucked at fitness, to be honest. I really did. I sucked at fitness for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I was terrible at fitness. So I could understand when you're terrible at fitness. I was terrible at everything, the diet, the workouts, the sleep. I also have shitty genetics. It wasn't until I changed my environment and I had a mentor that everything changed. And the men out there who are struggling and they're too afraid to ask for help or even just be around help. You don't even have to ask for it because they'll motherfuckers, most people will just invite you in. Sometimes there's like groups and or coaching programs. They literally say, hey, come in, right? And it's get out of your own fucking way and stop thinking. Stop it. Like stop this thinking. Like even if it's like the 55 minutes on the fucking Stairmaster, I hope today you never think anymore. I hope you just fucking grind on that motherfucker like a meat
Yeah.
grinder.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Get
and
in
then
there.
like just eliminate thought. So for any
Yeah.
man out that out there, just eliminate the thought. Just be around somebody who's better than you and eliminate the ones who are not.
Love
Fire.
it, bro. Where can people find you? Like all the stuff you do.
Yeah, what do you
Just
do? Where can people find you
Coach Marcus Wolf.
on
on
Instagram?
Yeah, on Instagram.
okay.
Just Instagram?
This Instagram.
You don't
Again,
dance on TikTok? Yeah.
I watch too much Hermosi, and Hermosi's too like one funnel, one product, make $1 million, and I'm like, okay, I'll try to figure it out, man. Like,
Yeah. It works, man. Focus, power of focus, right? Don't put too
yeah, and
many layers
again,
to it. Yeah.
it's work and fitness, right? We just keep showing up, eat fucking 180 grams of protein every day, fucking go for 10K walks, focus, focus, focus.
That's it. Okay. Well, hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Hope you enjoy the podcast.
Don't
And
cancel
hope
me. I said the R word.
it's okay, bro. You say it
I'll
all the
say
time.
that all the time, don't worry.
Say
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Yeah. Sick. Last words, Kegs. Anything?
Oh, thank you, Marcus, for coming on. Hope you guys got some value for this. And
Yes,
if you
sir.
enjoyed the podcast, please share it with someone else who you think needs to hear what the fuck this guy just spit out for us, because that was definitely some crazy fire.
Yeah.
Share it with one person. And thank you guys.
What'd you say, Marcus?
I said mucho gusto. I'm trying to
Okay.
make.
All right. Mucho, mucho. All right, easy.